Welcome back to this NPTEL course on muffler acoustics. So, what we will do is that we will combine lectures 4 and 5 for this week of week 10, and this will be the final lecture on perforated muffler components, because so far we have not really analyzed the 3-dimensional analysis of mufflers. So, next week we must start that, and let us see how far we can go and maybe just get a glimpse of dissipative mufflers in the final week for this course. But coming back to this lecture, what we will do is that we will focus on two methods. The first one is integrated transfer matrix approach, integrated transfer matrix approach. Okay. Other one is the integrated transfer matrix approach, and another one is the, since we intend to squeeze time to get to basically analyze as many configurations as possible. So, I thought it is a good idea to talk about the CCTR, conical concentric tube resonator configuration. If you remember, if you recall, I promised to present some of the equations and analyze configurations, muffler configurations like this one, where you have this tapered pipe. Okay. We will take out time. Conical concentric tube resonator used a lot in two-wheeler applications. Okay. So, let us see how we go about it, but first main focus is to demonstrate to you an integrated transfer matrix approach using MATLAB thing on a very complicated, a much more complicated system, which has not only has perforated tubes, but also has baffles. So, I will present to you one such configuration and talk about how does the integrated transfer matrix looks like. So, for that, to this end, what we will do is that consider the configuration. So, this is the integrated transfer matrix approach, what we will do for a flow reversal muffler configuration. But as you see, it has vertical, it has perforated pipes, but it also has baffles, it also has vertical baffles. So, how do we go about analyzing it? So, what integrated transfer matrix is nothing but it is just a very sophisticated form of network analysis. Whatever integrated ITM method can do, the same thing can very well be accomplished by network analysis, what we presented in the beginning of this lecture. Analyze or derive some sort of a characterization matrix representation, transfer matrix, impedance matrix, or whatever it is for a given muffler element, and then apply junction laws and relate the unknown variables, or basically relate all the variables or express all the variables in terms of a few unknown variables, and then take out a fraction or chunk of that matrix to get the overall transfer matrix or impedance matrix depending on the situation. So, integrated transfer matrix does all these things in a bit, perhaps in a bit more sophisticated manner, I guess. What it does basically, is that let us consider this muffler configuration. This was analyzed by El-Nadi from Egypt and his colleagues elsewhere in Europe, and this configuration promises to deliver a very good transmission loss performance, especially in the low frequency region where other mufflers kind of do not do that well. And because of the perforates and even though it is a cross flow configuration, because it is a perforated muffler component, cross flow configuration is there, back pressure is also not that high. So, it is like a win-win situation, and I will plot out the transmission loss graph, and you will see that in the presence of mean flow, even a nominal mean flow of 0.05 will dramatically uplift the troughs that otherwise would occur. So, basically all automotive mufflers have mean flow, so automatically the performance of such complicated mufflers goes up in the low frequency range in the presence of flow. So, coming back to this is the inlet. What we are seeing, this is the inlet and this is the outlet. What ITM does is that it divides the entire muffler into a number of cross sections. So, 0 means you start from here and then you go up to the section 1, basically it relates things from 0 to 1. So, how does it do? It divides this entire thing into 3 parts, where the tubular elements is there here and the annular cavity. So, it basically writes things something like this. So, S1 is just a state variable, it comprises of P1 V1, S2 0 comprises of P2 V2, S3 comprises of P3 V3, and then the 0 means the null matrix, and P matrix means is that the transfer matrix in this region. Okay. The transfer matrix for the tubular element that comprises of cos j sin k naught L j, and then the regular kind of a thing. And similarly, here also it comprises the same thing, and here also the same thing. So, it is basically essentially a kind of a diagonal matrix where, and all the non diagonal entries are null matrices. These are a regular cos j sin k naught L and that sort of a thing for tubular elements. Now, come to the part between 1 to 2. Now, this comprises a bit more complicated, because 1 and 3 elements are conjoined or kind of coupled through a perforated thing, but 2 has this, 2 just has a perforated thing. So, 2 we do not have any problem here, and the element, I mean the relation between 1 and 3 is such that it is you take chunks of certain the overall 4 cross 4 matrix and dump in this first 2 rows and first 2 columns, and remaining chunk can be dumped, can be sorry, I am so sorry. So, the first 2 rows and 2 columns are somewhere here, and then it is remaining part is somewhere here, and this is here, and this is sort of here. I mean, it requires a little bit of algebra. I am just showing you the full picture. One needs to work it out. So, basically the E matrix is really a 4 cross 4 matrix, and you are taking the first 2 rows, first 2 columns, and then last 2 rows, last 2 columns, and then putting it, and like this there will be the size will be 16, 4 cross 4. We are dumping it elsewhere, and similarly now we come to section 2 to 3. So, 2 to 3, when you do that, there is still no problem, in the sense that you have tubular elements here, here, here. So, it is again the diagonal matrix as you see, but now comes an important part when you go from 3 to 4. Now, you have a vertical baffle. Now, this what it does, as it is clear, in the presence of mean flow, this vertical baffle will also have its own effect in raising the troughs, the dissipative troughs, okay, and that is very, very important. And because you have a non-zero dissipative part, and it will help in raising the troughs. So, and this is related by a B matrix, which is nothing but P2, or rather P4 minus P3, the pressure just across this across the first section, across the baffles, is equal to rho naught C naught times the velocity. So, it leads us to this kind of a transfer matrix across 3 and 4 for the first annular region, and for the tubular region is just the conventional matrix, and everything else is 0. So, following in this fashion, we get this coupled thing for this one, and we keep going in here, and finally we reach for the section here 14 to 15. So, 14 to 15 once you get there, and 14 to 15 once you get there, and then you get I am sorry, 11 to 12, 12 to 13. So, what they have done is that the authors have combined them, basically kind of cascaded. So, what ITM does is basically it allows a very good basically extend the concepts of cascading the transfer matrix, is all that we are doing for very simple system all this while. Okay. So, this is just a normal transfer matrix multiplication, and then once you get P1 V1 P2 V2 P3 and V3 0, because direction has to be changed at 0th section to the 13th section until this part. After that something else will take over, which I am going to talk about now. So, we get this thing, and then P2 13 V2 13 and related to P2 16 and V2 16, that is somewhere here P2 13 and related to P2 16 and V2 16 by another sort of a transfer matrix that we see here. It is a 2 cross 2 matrix. And another thing that I want to quickly mention here without going into too much details is that such elements are often seen in the commercial mufflers with the end chamber and with the extended inlet. And then here it is much more complicated, because what Elnady and others have done is that they have considered transverse plane wave propagation here, what I have also been using in some of my earlier papers, and here there is a baffle. So, it becomes much more challenging or complicated in a plane wave kind of a sense. You know, the waves go from here to here like the direction I am pointing, and then when they come here they still are in the transverse sense, but then in this part there is difference, you know, P2 this minus this is there, and then and in this region the planar wave is there. So, you know, all these things will become clear if you look at the lengths of different constituent elements. And finally, after all the algebra, one can relate P216, V216 to P3 and V3 P3 and V313. So, what is P3 and V313? So, this is really your, you know, things here, pressure and velocity here, and P216 and V216 is somewhere here. So, once we know the relation between you know, these two guys, relate this and this, encompassing all the other things that happen between, and then you know, once we have this sort of a thing, we can relate P213, V213 to P313 and V313, and through this matrix representation, and finally applying the boundary condition and the junction laws, compatibility condition or the junction laws, P113 is equal to P313 and P313 is equal to P313 dash, and V113 and V313 is equal to minus V3 and 13 dash, and at the annular region V10 is 0. So, after you apply all this condition, and you lead to a big transfer matrix, and then eliminating or inverting the transfer matrix and relating finally you know, what happens in P2 V2 to, you know, P3 V3 0, then that will give you the final transfer matrix encompassing everything. So, such a code has been written, it has been shared by one of the colleagues, which I like to demonstrate to you. So, it contains lots and lots of functions. So, what I am going to do, I am just going to present only the bare important functions. So, and demonstrate to you one of the things in how does it occur. Obviously, with flow one also has to solve the network analysis. So, it's quite challenging to analyze such a configuration, which fortunately I am going to talk about. I have the code. So, this is the code and the inlet and outlet diameter pipe, and this is the major and minor axis of the shell, equivalent diameter, and then there are number of things like equivalent diameter of the cavity where inlet and outlet pipes are both present. There are number of such sections. So, these are some of the terminologies. 600 is the number of frequency points in the range from 1 to 600 hertz. So, we are dividing into 1 hertz, and everything else is same. So, let us do for a stationary medium by setting the inlet Mach flow in the inlet pipe to be 0, and then this is the flow analysis. So, we also need to go to the solve network file, which is, I do not know where it is gone, but I will find out and figure out for you. Solve network. Well, so here also I am setting the mean flow to 0. So, there is no flow, and then you know what it does is that NPF, number of frequency steps, and then it starts, you know, assimilating the transfer matrices across each section and then sort of multiplying them, you know. So, these are the most important things. A, you know, exactly the same formulation what I had talked about. B, C, and you know, this code goes on and on. So, I will be very concise here and kind of just present you the final thing. B is equal to this and Q is equal to NQ, and after all this algebra, you know, what you get is this thing, and what you get is really this thing, and so what I am going to do is run the code for this configuration. So, these are the final results after, you know, varying a number of parameters in the code. So, what I did was that you know, I varied the grazing flow Mach number in the inlet pipe starting from a stationary medium. So, m naught is equal to 0. Let us you know, I will, you know, there are large number of such function phi's, each doing some certain things like contraction, it is calculating the losses due to contraction outlet or expansion, and you know, the Elnadi's baffle expression, transfer matrix for that, and the number of such things the function does, and this is based on my Frobenius series solution for the elliptical section and so on and so forth. So and finally, all of the results that we are seeing in this routine, the integrated transfer matrix thing. But now at the end of the day, what we are interested in is the detailed analysis of the transmission loss. So, I will focus my attention on that itself without going too much into the the details of the code. So, there are a couple of things that have come out of this analysis is that firstly, mean flow significantly and dramatically influences the transmission loss characteristics. It greatly enhances that. All this while you were talking about concentric tube resonators where the mean flow would just simply dampen the peaks would come down and the troughs would be slightly raised. So, you would eventually conclude, well, flow is doing good, has some sort of an effect, and we tended to ignore the convective effects of mean flow and retain the more important dissipative effects. Well, in this paper we have also done the same in this analysis, but the profound effect of mean flow is that it completely changes the nature of the transmission loss behavior. If you focus our attention on the Mach number 0 curve, you see a peak, and this is pretty normal. You would expect such a peak and multiple such peaks because it really acts like a a quarter wave, a kind of a flow reversal kind of a configuration that it is, and you would see a peak in the low frequency characteristic of the resonator thing. But but when flow occurs, the peaks definitely come down, but it has a dramatic leveling influence. So, when you have 0 mean flow, you can the transmission loss performance can be as low as 4-5 dB in 200 hertz and continues to stays not so good in the intermediate range from 200 hertz to about 350 hertz, 380 hertz onwards until that. But then even when there is a small amount of flow, Mach number 0.05, it has such a good effect on the transmission loss attenuation that the straight away the curve uplifts, and you are getting almost like 20 dB or close to 20 dB attenuation throughout the frequency band, and the more the flow, the better is the attenuation. There is a slope, there is definitely an appreciable slope here, and it really does the trick. So, so what I am trying to say is that mean flow in this case is very beneficial because of the dissipative effects of the flow characteristics. The curve really uplifts, and that does a lot of good things to the attenuation performance, and this we have not seen in all the configurations analyzed so far. So, what exactly am I trying to say? One can and other thing actually before I conclude is that all this thing is happening in the very low frequency range. Look at the frequency 100 hertz. It is giving you almost less than 100 hertz, it is giving you almost 20 dB transmission loss in this range, which is wonderful, because a lot of engine noise is definitely at such low frequency 100 hertz, 150 hertz, and then super harmonics like 300 hertz, 450 hertz and so on. So, if you can really get very good performance until about 600, 700 hertz, we are in business, and all this is done by plane wave analysis. So, plane wave is quite good, it is not that bad, and especially when you are analyzing a very complicated muffler, the mode matching thing, or the analytical mode matching, numerical mode matching, or even simple 3D models would be very cumbersome. So, instead of going for finite element analysis, one can definitely do good in terms of plane wave analysis in the very low frequency range for automotive mufflers at least. And then we are definitely in business. It is all about manipulating and setting up the cavities, baffles, and any complicated muffler can be analyzed by this powerful ITM method. It is just a matter of suitably combining the sections into one, and it can also be used to have consider dissipative materials. So, if you have dissipative materials, then it would do even better in terms of attenuation in high frequencies. So, the idea is that for such configurations with vertical baffles and perforated pipes and those sort of things, mean flow does a lot of it does a lot of good to the attenuation performance rather than just dampening the peaks and stuff like that. So, what we will do is that we can just conclude that a large number of such configurations can be analyzed. I will show you one such configuration if I can. So, another such configuration is this one, which is more like an expansion chamber with one baffle, and this is even more simpler to analyze than the one that we than the one we presented before. And here also with flow a lot of interesting things can happen. It can straight away lift the transmission loss curve, but this configuration also needs such to analyze the flow distribution in such complicated muffler or commercial mufflers. One also has to solve the flow, how does the flow is distributed in different pipes, and for that we have to do the resistance analysis approach presented in Munjal's book, and that requires a separate analysis. So, I am not going into that right now, rather I just use the results that I presented, use some of these formulations in the results that I presented so far, but it is possible in general to analyze any complicated muffler, commercial mufflers using this ITM method along with the method of solving for the flow fields. So, once that is done, you can obtain the transmission loss performance, and one can stick up to low frequencies like up to 600-700 hertz and so on. So, with this I will end the topic, I will end this particular topic here and focus on the conical concentric tube resonator mufflers right now. So, let us briefly talk about this CCTR muffler configuration, where when you have such a kind of a thing, the only difference between this was suppose the taper was not there, it was like this, it would have been a CTR, but because we have a conical thing, we have CCTR. So, what we will do is that we will analyze, we will develop the continuity equation in the region 1 and that in the region 2 and the annular region, and let us say this is partially perforated only, and develop relation between things here to this here and here, and derive transfer matrix, and for a partially perforated tube conical CCTR configuration, we will do the double tuning of such configuration, exactly what we did for CTR. So, in this conical concentric tube resonator configuration CCTR, you have it is pretty much very similar to your CTR concentric tube resonator, in which the outer volume is a uniform pipe, but in this case the difference is that the outer volume is a conical pipe. So, you see I do not have space here, but what I could really do is basically just draw small version here, something like this, and this kind of a thing, and you have this sort of a thing. Now, we have this kind of a situation where we have the diameter d something like this, and this is like this d di and d naught. So, we have this, and this kind of a thing is there, and the diameter here inside is say small d naught, which is uniform. So, this the internal pipe, I am sorry, the inner pipe or the airway can also be gradually varying in across its length, but we will consider a simple case, and one of the reasons why we use a CCTR, which you see a lot of such configurations in two-wheelers. Remember the photographs that we had seen probably week 6 of this lecture, where we first introduced variable area ducts. Basically what happens is that it is a usual practice to exploit or employ the the attenuation resistance dissipation offered by the perforated components to achieve a lot of acoustic attenuation. So, CTRs is used, concentric tube resonators are used, but usually they perform very well at relatively higher frequencies. For low frequencies, you typically have large volume. So, what this CCTR does is that you have typically a relatively much larger volume here, rather than making it something like this. You often have space more towards the exhaust, where the near the tailpipe. So, there you can have a relatively larger volume, and this kind of a thing is there. So, the idea is to combine the low frequency attenuation that wherever a large volume is possible along with the attenuation or the resistance offered by the perforated components. Okay. And then so that is how we combine the unique feature of perforated thing and as well as the large volume thing to achieve attenuation. And also, by the way, you know, the gradually varying area duct can also be thought of as notionally it can be thought of as stepped segment in the form of stepped segmentation approach, where you kind of mimic the profile something like this kind of a thing. You know, the idea is that this gradually varying area duct will always tend to reflect the acoustic power back. So, in that way we having a lot of advantages by using a CCTR configuration. So, let us get to the maths behind this. So, what I will do, I will sort of rub this guy, and I need some space here. So, I will start from the control volume approach, but one thing we should keep here in mind is that I am not going to consider the effects of convective effects of mean flow. I am going to sort of ignore it altogether just to keep the equation simple. Of course, if you include mean flow effects, you know, there are more number of terms that will be added. So, and you will have a small amount of variation as we have been discussing throughout the course. So, let us start with a an elementary control volume here in the region 1. So, what happens is that let us say you have this control volume 1, something like this, and this is S. Okay. Let us say the internal or the airway is also having a gradual variation. So, what we do basically is that let us say you have the mass flux that is entering is rho SU S and rho SU at x plus delta x. Okay. And this is x, this is x plus delta x. Okay. So, now what is the total mass that is entering into the system? And of course, note that due to the perforated pipe here, all across the curved surface, some mass flux goes outside, and there is a gradual exchange. So, rho S u S minus rho S u S plus x plus delta x minus S c. S c is the curvilinear surface area into rho into u star. Okay. This kind of a thing is there. So, this is equal actually to del T of rho S into delta x, because density times cross section area into the distance. So, this is like the net mass, that is temporal change of mass. We have been so far, I mean at this stage of this course, this term should be very familiar with you when you equate the mass influx and outflux across a control volume. So, the standard, we will apply the standard procedure. Note that S here can also be varying in general. What it means is that this S is the cross section area. You can see this is a uniform pipe, but for generality what we will do is that we will keep S sort of varying, and then we will assume that that S is remaining constant, and we will drop off, we will strike out certain terms. So, for generality sake we will follow like this. So, then this becomes, you can write this guy here and divide throughout by S multiplied by delta x. So, once you do that, you will get rho S u S minus rho S u into x plus delta x S into delta x minus S c into rho u star by S into delta x. Okay. So, we get this kind of a thing. Now, what happens is that we should immediately sort of start to linearize this differential equation, but before we actually even attempt to do that, one can straight away do the following. So, what we do is basically del T of rho is equal to your minus del x of rho S u. You can just take the limit as this limit tends to 0, and you will see also here what will happen soon, and in the denominator you have S, and here is minus S c rho u star So, here you get SC rho u star is the radial velocity that goes along the perforate, across the perforate, I am sorry, as S into delta x. Now, what is SC? It is nothing but pi d or 2 pi r, I would say pi d, d being d can also, you can think of this as a function of time of axial coordinate z into delta x, or actually I should write this as x. Okay. So, you get this and plus rho S u pi d delta x and S delta x into rho u star is equal to 0. So, this guy sort of goes away, delta x gets cancelled, and what you really get is del t of this. Now, we can assume that S can be assumed to be constant across the distance x along the axis. So, you can take S out. So, this gets cancelled and you are left with the familiar thing of this thing, pi d S into rho u star is equal to 0. Okay. So, we need to sort of simplify this thing further, and so for that end what we will do is that we will assume that rho is rho naught ambient density plus rho tilde. Okay. And let us assume, like I said, a stationary medium. So, u is also u star, and we can actually do one thing straight away, and that is, and we can do this something like rho 1 and this is rho 1 because of the medium, because this pertains to the medium 1 and there is no mean flow in the duct. For simplicity we can assume that this is d 1, and what we can do is that p 1 tilde by rho rho 1 tilde is equal to C naught square, and 1 by C naught square plus one can expand this out, and plus pi d 1, and this will obviously be pi d 1 square by 4. So, 4 goes in the numerator, and this is rho naught plus rho 1 tilde, and rho 1 tilde you can sort of ignore because this will be multiplied by u star. So, I would just put this as u star, and there is a cancellation here and this is here. So, this is 0, and once you simplify this equation further, so you will get 1 by C naught square times this thing, and again we drop the second quadratic terms, because the quadratic terms we have been shown we have shown that they are small in the first week of this course. So, rho naught you can take to be common, and this is u x, rho naught into this is u 1, you can say like this. And what about the other terms? Let's worry about the other terms as well. So, basically you get your 4 times rho naught by d I guess d 1 into u star is equal to 0. So, if we assume time harmonicity, so we get so this is P 1 of course has to be solved for x. So, P 1 is nothing but x and t, and rho naught and this is u star. So, this becomes j k naught P 1 tilde plus rho naught C naught, and this will become 4 rho naught C naught times d1 and u star is equal to 0. So, we get this sort of a term, but further simplification perhaps also needs to be carried out. And so, what is u star really? U star is nothing but I will just right now just box this guy and say u star is nothing but P1 minus P2 by rho naught C naught impedance, rho naught C naught into the perforate impedance. So, how about we plug this value straight away here, and that should simplify things a bit, in the sense that we have got less responsibility now to remember terms. We can just straight away use this thing, and this goes away. Okay. So, this goes away. So, what do you get out of this? You get your 4 by, I will just do this, you get this sort of a thing. Okay. Now, one can sort of simplify this further, j k naught p 1 tilde plus, we can sort of rearrange terms, j k naught plus 4 times zeta d 1 minus 4 by p 2 by zeta d 1 is equal to 0. Okay. So, we get this sort of a thing. Now, the momentum equation in this duct will remain the same. So, we get rho naught into del del u 1 tilde in T plus del del P 1 of x. So, here we get rho naught C naught u 1 plus, you get this sort of a thing. Okay. So, basically we are ending up with the same momentum equation, which can be written in the in the following form, which is your d dx is equal to minus j k naught times rho naught C naught u 1 tilde. We can just box this guy. Apparently, I guess I realized that I have sort of made a mistake in the equation above. There is no rho naught C naught u term, which I guess I have missed here. So, there was this term, this guy sitting here, and apologies for that. I have kind of forgotten to write it down. So, this obviously has to be written. So, so this equation actually was something like this. So, this is a small mistake here, which I am now correcting. So, this is a ordinary derivative d u 1 by tilde by dx rho naught C naught this thing plus this guy. So, that is how you sort of arrange terms. So, this is equation 1, equation 2. Now, so far things have been quite clean, they have been manageable, clean derivation. Now, mean flow velocity in the airway has not been quite considered, because we are considering a stationary medium to bring out the effects of this variable area duct and focus not probably focus on the mean flow effects. Other thing that I want to point out is that these two equations 1 and 2 appear to be are actually they are the same as the one derived for a CTR. Now, the real difference lies in the outer duct. So, remember this configuration, the outer duct has a gradually varying flare, and this will show up in the momentum equation of the the continuity equation of this duct. So, what happens is pretty much is for the it's pretty much the same. So, in such a case we have del del T of rho 2, which is your density in the total density in the second duct, and this thing rho naught S U2 this thing, and minus rho naught SC by S into U star delta x is equal to 0. Okay. So, rho 2 is nothing but rho naught plus rho 2 tilde. Okay. So, once you do that, you will get rho 2 tilde like this, and because del del T of rho naught is 0, and once you simplify the above terms, you will get the following, which is basically a rho naught by S into dds of S into U2. Now, S here is different from the one in the duct 1. So, S is nothing but pi by 4, you can say d2 z square minus d1 square, you have this kind of a thing. So, so let's sort of quickly simplify the algebra. So, you get this minus pi d into delta x by s into delta x, p1 tilde minus p2 tilde divided by rho naught c naught u star. Okay. So, here there will be minus sign instead of plus, because because of the conventions that we have followed. Remember, in the other one, in the equation just derived for the continuity equation derived for the first duct, here you had a plus sign here, but in this equation you have a minus sign purely because of the convention. Whatever mass is leaving the duct 1, it is entering the annular region 2. So, you get all these expressions, and finally, after some simplification, what you will get is P2 plus rho naught C naught U2 by S, where S is given by the above equation, and now clearly S is a function of x, and you have your rho naught C naught U2 by x and minus pi d by S into P1 tilde minus P2 tilde by zeta is equal to 0. Okay. So, once you simplify further, the final form of this equation would look something like this, pi d by S zeta P1 tilde minus P2 j k naught pi d, this is actually d1 so you get this sort of a thing. So, let us call this equation 3. This is like this. So, we get this sort of a thing, and d dx of this guy P1 tilde rho naught C naught U1 P2 and rho naught C naught U2. This is equal to, so when we are sort of putting the entire thing in the matrix form, and notice carefully the difference that you would observe with respect to a CTR. What happens to a CCTR? Okay. So, this will become 0 minus j k naught 0 0 minus j k naught plus, or rather just minus 4 by zeta d naught zero 4 by d d1 zeta 0 minus j k naught 0 0 0 0 and pi d1 pi s zeta minus j k naught minus pi d by s zeta and minus 1 by s into this. Okay. So, we get this sort of a thing. So, notice the difference when you have ddx of s going to 0, which is the case for a CTR, because you remember, let us recall this thing, this particular thing, if d2 is not a function of x, that is outer diameter or radius is constant, then ddx of s is 0. So, you would end up getting rid of this term, okay, and only term that would basically s would still survive, and s would be d2 square minus d1 square, and there will be a factor of pi by 4. So, 4 will go in the numerator and pi will cancel. So, you will eventually get the same thing, 4 4 d1 divided by d2 square minus d1 square into zeta, and same thing here as well. So, basically this is a this case reduces to that of a CTR when you have no variation of the annular cross section area with respect to the distance x, actual distance x. In case you have, then you definitely end up with a variable system of ordinary differential equation with a variable coefficients. So, you can still use, now the clever thing is that if you have 0 variation, of course, you have a constant coefficient differential equation, and the solution of that would be easily given by as we discussed, P1 rho naught C naught U1, P2 rho naught C naught U2. So, this would be something like exponential EXPM matrix. You can use this command in MATLAB to figure out things, and say the length is L, okay, and this is the constant C1, C2, C3, C4. So, your life is pretty much sorted out, but then once you have variable differential coefficients with variable differential equations, things are a little more tricky. So, what we need to do is that follow the matricent approach. So, matricent approach, what does it do? Basically, over a small segment delta x. So, whenever you are getting this sort of a solution, you assume that this L is replaced by delta x, and eventually what you would do, this entire thing, let us say I am drawing a very exaggerated view of this coupled system. So, you have this kind of a thing. So, let us say you consider a small segment here, you divide this in exponential kind of a duct, okay. You divide this in with an exponential duct, something like this, and you relate things at x with those occurring at x plus delta x. So, eventually what we will do is that, let us say so L is divided notionally into n number of parts, each segment being delta x thing. So, over this part we are assuming that 1 by s into this thing remains constant. It can be shown that it is actually an exponential profile, because we can just say this delta x 1 by s is equal to alpha, and then delta s by s is equal to alpha times x, and in the limit of delta x tending to 0, delta x tending to 0, you can integrate this guy and get alpha x. So, you would get s over this small distance is e to the power alpha x, and there you go with a constant. You can add a constant here as well. So, basically what it means, the moment you assume that over a small distance this guy is constant, that is this particular thing is constant, you would see that this thing is actually exponential, okay. You see this is actually exponential in nature, okay. So, the idea is that over such a small segment you would go with P1 rho naught C naught U1 tilde, P2 rho naught C naught U2 tilde at x is equal to e to the power minus c into delta x, and this would become P1 rho naught C naught U1 P2 rho naught C naught U2 and x plus delta x. Okay. So, basically this is only over a short segment. So, we will soon go to the code. So, C matrix, mind you, I made a small typo here, I mean not to make you guys confused, that this, let us call this as a C matrix, and this constant can be something else, you know, this can, you can say this as capital A into e to the power alpha x, not to have any confusion. The main idea is calling this entire matrix as C matrix. C of course is a function of x, as you can very well see, because S is a function of x, especially when you have, you know, inner pipe also with a variable area, then you can have the, you know, terms like this one here, everything will be function of x. The key idea behind the matricent approach, we have done only segment week 6, but now it's, you know, it's a good idea to talk about the exponential you know, matrix approach as well, matricent approach. So, we assume this matrix C matrix to be constant over a small distance, and hence we integrate to relate things upstream with those at downstream. Okay. And now once we have done that, we can similarly, you know, do now, I guess, had it been a you know, class which is to be delivered in person, I would have stopped here and asked one of you guys to come and derive it for me. But this being an online class, I will give you a solution which basically tells you how to relate, how to basically keep multiplying and traverse the entire length of the duct, so that you can relate things upstream with those at downstream. Okay. So, this is x plus delta x, and this is e to the power minus c, and this of course is that evaluated at, say, you can evaluate at x naught plus, well, c naught x naught plus delta x by 2 into delta x. Okay. And c x naught, and this is let us say this is done at you know, 3 into delta x by 2 into delta x. So, this is what it is. You know, you keep this C matrix as a value, it's what it is, going like this, and eventually what you will get is something like this. E to the power something, e to the power something, you know, at x naught plus delta x by 2, x naught plus 3 times delta x by 2, and so on, and x naught plus n minus 1 delta x by 2. This is evaluated the C matrix at that point, and finally, you know, what you will get, this is, let us say this is at x is equal to 0, this entire thing will be at x is equal to L. So, that means what essentially you have done is that you have related things across this section to those at this section, and then it is a pretty much a straightforward thing that you apply boundary conditions. So, you know, we will demonstrate some simple MATLAB codes in which basically, you know, going back to the configuration here, let this duct be partially perforated only. So, the boundary condition, recall the discussions that we had in week 7 at this section. The acoustic impedance is something like this minus j times cot k naught L, but actually this would be different. Now, this would not be just this term, because this part is no longer a uniform duct of length L2 or L1. You know, it is really variable area duct. So, I would replace, the problem is still quite simple, in the sense that this is a much simpler problem to solve for the impedance here, when you have a solid pipe here, non-perforated pipe here, and a rigid wall here. You can apply your segmentation approach to get some impedance expression Z1. Similarly, you can apply the thing here, P2 by rho naught C naught U2 at x is equal to L to get Z2. With these boundary conditions, you can go about analyzing this. In the most simplest cases, when it is a fully perforated thing, you where u2 is 0 here and u2 is 0 here also. So, what we will do quickly is that we will go to MATLAB code which has already been written by me. As usual, we have a transmission loss plot thing, and let r2 naught means the radius at x is equal to 0, which is 50 mm, this is 75 mm, diameter is 50 mm. So, we are basically having a configuration something like this. So, this diameter is same as the radius here. So, once we do that, once we go to MATLAB, this is all in our hands, length we have chosen. This is the reason why. Let me just comment it out and put this thing here, and porosity is 30%, everything else is the same, and you are using something to calculate the transmission loss once you get the overall transfer matrix. So, we are giving choice 1 means the inner pipe is uniform across its length, outer pipe is varying, and then we get this kind of a thing. So, we are dividing the length L, the gradually varying area duct, into say 50 segments of small lengths, over which dd 1 by s into ddx of s will remain constant, thickness and diameter of the perforated pipe, and choice 1 we are giving. And so, eventually these are some of the parameters that we play around with. Do not worry about the end corrections just yet, we just divide this thing into number of parts here, and then define the transfer matrix for each segment. It is initialized with 0 every time it enters the loop, and what it does is basically calculates this matrix, and keeps multiplying the A matrix, and finally at the end of the code we get this guy, and then these are the areas of the cross section or the inner pipe at upstream and downstream, and this is also for the outer pipe upstream and downstream. And then once we do that, then we basically have to figure out the transfer matrix, get into the PV form rather than P rho naught C naught U form, and then we need to write an algorithm for the resonator at the inlet of length L1 by L, and similarly coding for the resonator at the outlet, that is L3 by N. So, basically L1 and L3 were defined to be something like this, and let me comment it out, sorry, put a colon, and L2 is the thing that is in between. So, once you get this coding, you get the impedance expression I was talking about, and then all these manipulations are very similar to what we saw in the week 5 lecture. Okay. So, in the perforated impedance expression I am assuming for a stationary medium, as somewhere mentioned somewhere here, for a grazing flow, things would not change too much, as we probably would know if there is no kind of a flow. So, what I will do is that I will just run the code and do some parametric studies. What we will do is that we will divide the length L1 into, say, the resonator length can be 0.5 times L, and L3 the resonator length at the outlet can be 0.25 L. So, this is what it is. So, the reason is that because in CCTR or CTR configuration, I am sorry, we usually to find out the tuned length, we start off with 0.5 L and 0.25 L respectively, and then we basically, because of the lumped inner holes, you see the performance does not quite get tuned at L or 0.25 L. You need to have a relatively a bit shorter length of the inlet and outlet. So, let us do one thing, let us run this code for exactly 0.5 L and 0.25 L and see what we are getting. Most likely we will be getting a dip at the first and second axial resonance peaks. So, we are this is not so bad, this is really a here, and there is a mismatch in the tuning frequency to the configuration here. So, what happens is that the trough that you are seeing here, because you are making this as a relatively larger length L by 2, whatever resonance peak you are getting here, it is not exactly able to nullify the trough that you are getting here. That is why there is a mismatch, and there is a large mismatch between the resonance offered by the resonance peak due to the second annular cavity here and the second axial resonance peak here. So, this should have really been occurred somewhere here, this is occurring somewhere here. So, what we do is that there are a number of ways in which we can mitigate the problem. First one is, of course, we will go with only one. The first approach is basically do an iterative approach rather than an analytical solution, because that would be very tedious. What we do is that, let us comment out this thing, let us remember, let us go back to this figure. You will realize that the effective length of this cavity will be shorter than L by 2, because it is a gradually varying area duct. It is no longer L by 2, it is actually shorter. Okay. So, what it means is that this peak was occurring before after the trough, and if it was a CTR configuration, this peak would have occurred, this peak would have occurred before. So, what really, this is an important concept here. What it means is that in this we must add a little length. Let us start with, say, I have written 5, let us start with 15, and in this, the other thing, we must subtract a little bit length, because by that time, at this thing, it is almost behaving like a annular area with uniform cross section. So, basically we can sort of subtract a little bit length here and see what we are getting. We can do figure 1 on hold on, and plot this guy again. And see what we are getting. So, we are getting this sort of a thing. So, things are a little better here, although with a little bit fine tuning we can definitely get rid of this peak, I am sorry, of this trough, we will see soon. And by subtracting certain length of this pipe, we are able to get this this guy closer to the axial resonance, second axial trough. So, we will keep this thing as it is, and what we will do is that we will go back to this thing, and let me use a blue colored thing, and let us say reduce this by to 5, and let this guy be probably this is getting me at 15. Okay. So, minus 15. So, because I had subtracted significant length, so the peak was delayed, and if I were to subtract this a bit more, perhaps let us say make it 18, let us see what we are able to achieve. I hope the second thing would be sorted out. It is just an experiment that I am doing really. The first is definitely killed. So, I will get rid of this red colored curve, it is a little bit of distraction, and this has definitely taken away the first axial resonance, and this one almost, well, this has almost sort of killed this thing. So, roughly between 15 to 18 mm you can find out, you can still get a fine tuned value, you can put it 16 and compute this guy again, and let us see the value what we are getting. We are getting almost a perfect tuning. Okay. So, the point I am trying to make is that even for a CCTR, you can find out the differential length by fine tuning it. Basically, differential length is the difference between the length of the configuration in which you do not have a perforated bridge, and find out theoretical based on plane wave limit exactly the frequency at which the first and second axial resonances would kill the first and second troughs, or the axial resonance peaks, axial resonance troughs of the chamber. And then from that thing, but then when you put a perforated bridge, these perforated holes have a inertance effect, and that would basically kind of, you have to do some sort of iteration and to figure out how much is the effect and all that sort of a thing. So, once you do that, we can sort of find out the exact length. So, with this particular demonstration, I would sort of end my presentation and my lecture for week 10. Like this, we can keep analyzing much more complicated configurations. Let me just draw 2-3 things for you. We need not analyze them just straight away. Let us say we have something like this sort of a thing. This pipe is also having a variable area thing, something like this. Or you could probably have things like Okay. So, you can have multiple interacting ducts with perforates, and one can do a lot of things, analyze these kind of things. So, with this I will take a break here, and I will see you in the next week, that is week 11, where week 11 is going to be important, although we have had an extended session for perforated components because it is very important. Although we have been dealing only with planar wave analysis so far, in week 11 we will go for the first time for 3D analysis only of reactive mufflers in which there are no perforates. Okay, some simple empty chambers like rectangular sections, circular sections, and with different orientations of pipe. And I will introduce you to scattering matrix concept and impedance matrix concept with a little bit of more reinforcement of our fundamentals, and derive relation between impedance and scattering matrix, and how to find out transmission loss in terms of such parameters, how to characterize such chambers, single inlet single outlet chamber of rectangular cross section or circular cross section using a piston driven approach or a point source approach, and try to a side inlet side outlet. Number of such configurations will be the focus of next week's lecture. And what it does is basically by optimizing the location of ports, you can definitely kill the resonance. I mean, basically get a broadband attenuation. So all this will be a focus of week 11, and let's see how far we can go up to for 3D analysis of such things. One can avoid a finite element analysis if we already have 3D analytical codes, but again its performance is still restrictive for simple configurations. Let me tell you something. We will see more of that in week 11. So till that time, stay tuned. Thanks.